Welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and this is a brand new Colnago V5RS. I'm here in California to ride it for the first time. But before I share my impressions of how the bike performs, let me give you a full lowdown of the changes and improvements on the brand new bike launched today. And I've been lucky to ride every generation of the V series, going right back to the original V1 in 2014 when it had rim brakes and a Ferrari logo on the top tube, and more recently the V5RS, linked to our review above in case you missed it. And this is a bike designed for Tadej Pogačar and his team, of course, to perform at the highest level, as if he needs any more help, totally dominating the pro peloton right now. But here is his new race bike, which he'll race from now on forwards. And I filmed this before Paris-Roubaix, so no idea if he's gone out on a high with a double on a V5RS. But what a bike, is performing really well for him. So the company, as you know, launched a Y1RS earlier this year. They had their extreme mad Aero race bike.
And with the launch of that dedicated Aero race bike, it allows the V5RS to go on a real diet. And a diet it has gone on. This is the lightest Colnago ever made.
So let's talk about weight first, because I'm no weight weenie, but if you are buying a top-end race bike like this, a Aero all-rounder, and you care about weight, then the V5RS probably wasn't on your shortlist, or maybe on your shortlist but not near the top, because the likes of the Specialized Tarmac, the Trek Madone, the Cannondale Super 6 Evo and others were lighter. And Colnago had never really focused on weight as a main objective in their long history. But now they really have moved to a position where it's a much more viable, credible alternative to those other bikes when it comes to weight. Because the new frame set is a claimed 685 grams for an unpainted, key point there, no paint on it, size 485, which is roughly a 54 centimetre, because Colnago measure their frames a bit differently. But this bike here, a size 51, which is roughly 55, 56, which fits me at 181 centimetres, weighs, with a top end build, but no pedals on it, 6.9 kilos. So very close to UCI weight limit and more in line with the bikes I mentioned earlier in this class.
For comparison, the previous V5RS, when I reviewed it with almost the same components, weighed 7.16 kilograms. So a decent weight saving, but not enough to probably get the hardcore enthusiast weight weenies really excited compared to a Scott Addict RC or Specialized Athos.
And with a few weight saving measures, some carbon tie chain rings and other bits and bobs, that UCI weight limit of 6.8 kilos is definitely in sight.
But how, you ask, have they made it lighter?
Because visually, yes, I know, it looks almost the same as the old bike, and at a glance it does look the same. But no bad thing though. It's like the Porsche or the Volkswagen Golf. Very similar visual design. That's a design language, of course. But up close, it's much slimmer and narrower. And it's basically been on a diet. It's been on a carb-free diet for a few weeks and lost quite a bit of bulk in key places. Most noticeably at the back with a sword-like seat post. And it's so narrow, in fact, that like on the Tarmac SL8, the Di2 battery for this group set can't go in the seat post or the seat tube. So it goes through the bottom bracket into the down tube, which is kind of cool, keeps the weight low, but does mean if the battery fails or it needs replacing for any reason, which is pretty rare, the cranks and bottom bracket has to come out. So not so practical at all. But batteries rarely fail, and a good reason to go to SRAM wireless, and for Shimano to maybe go wireless in the future. Who knows? I don't. But wireless is a solution for where to put a battery in increasingly narrow frames. So slimmer profiles. There's also a more advanced carbon fiber layout, as carbon fiber manufacturing just continues to evolve and much better processes to reduce all the wrinkles and crinkles and excess carbon and resin inside the frame, which you can't see, to just basically produce a lighter frame. It's also narrow at the front as well, the fork blades, the head tube, and that means smaller headset bearings with a D-shaped stereo tube to allow the brake hoses to go inside. And two other ways they save weight on the frame is the multi-tool that went inside the handlebar stem has gone. Because it's a race bike, I guess the pros don't need tools. They have a support car behind them. And the other one is very neat. So underneath this rubber flap is the seat clamp. Now usually a seat clamp is a metal wedge that pushes against the seat post, and they're quite heavy, bit of metal bulk. And also when you remove the seat post for traveling, for packing the bike, they fall down the seat tube, which is not ideal. So now, to solve that issue and save weight, they've built a carbon threaded piece that the bolt goes straight into. So one piece, a bolt, and just a carbon thread molded into the frame. Of course, a small question mark around the durability of carbon threads, I guess. I've only had the bike for a few hours, and in that time I've removed the seat post a few times and done it bolt up and loosened it and done it up a few times just to check it, and it works well. It's smooth, no resistance when doing up the bolt, and no creaking or any alarming noises. But only long-term testing, which this is not, will reveal whether that is successful and durable for pros and amateurs alike. And only when there are enough bikes out there can we get the feedback to make sure that works. But I'm sure they've done a testing to make sure it is up to the task. Otherwise they wouldn't do it, because it's quite a key part of the bike to fail, and they don't want that, do they? And as well as the frame being lighter, the fork is also lighter too, down from 372 grams to 345 grams, so quite a big saving there. Another weight saving is a move from a T47 bottom bracket on the old bike to a BSA 68mm bottom bracket. And while you might think they lose stiffness from the smaller bore diameter bottom bracket, they say the stiffness from the frame in that area is enough to compensate for that smaller diameter bottom bracket. So an interesting move from T47, which has become popular, back to the old school, old fashioned BSA 68mm threaded bottom bracket.
Naturally, the new bike is also more aerodynamic, thanks to design insights carried over from the radical Y5RS. Most of the gains come from the narrower front end, which also contributes to weight savings. The slimmer head tube and fork blades reduce the frontal surface area by 13%. And in Colnago's own testing, the claimed Aero improvements are modest, but bring the bike a step closer to the Y5RS. We'll have to wait for the Tour magazine's independent results to see how it really stacks up against rivals, which, for reference, puts the current V5RS at 221 watts at 45 km/h, around 14 watts more than the best-in-class competitor. And when it comes to stiffness, Colnago was apparently satisfied with the stiffness of the previous V5RS, and I certainly had no complaints about its stiffness when I rode the bike last year. So the aim of the new V5RS was to maintain the same level of stiffness while dropping weight in the frame. It refined the head tube and bottom bracket areas to maintain what it describes as the same real riding stiffness.
Other quick details before I share how the bike rides. UGH dropout, so future-proof to any new group sets, and space for 32mm wide tyres, the same as the old bike and the same as other bikes in this class. And I did wonder if they might go wider, given Tade's preference of wide tyres and tyres getting wider, but maybe they decided that 32 is enough, and feedback from the team suggests to them that 32 clearance is enough for the next 3 or 4 years life cycle of this frame. And Tade and the team are definitely at the forefront of embracing wide tyres in a pro peloton, and he's done a lot to advertise the benefits of wide tyres. If it's okay for them, it's okay for us amateur riders. So yeah, really interesting that they've stayed at 32 and haven't gone to 34 or 35 like the ENVE Melee. So maybe we're seeing that settle down on a race bike, because race bikes have got wider and wider tyre clearance over the years, but now maybe settle down at 32 for a road bike, and a gravel bike up to 50, 55, and then mountain bikes, anything you want really. So yeah, those are the main details. A bit priced down below for your region because I don't have them to hand right now. But let me get changed, go for a spin, and see how it performs. Very much first impressions on the brand new Colnago V5RS. So here we are then, you join me on a 17-mile drive. An amazing road from Monterey to Carmel along the Pacific coast and look at that view. Very windy, but hopefully you can hear me okay. It's a lovely morning. I've had coffee and breakfast. I have a few hours to ride the bike and see what it's all about. It's now much closer to a tarmac, a Super 6 Evo, Madone in terms of weight, especially when you put the high-end parts on it. So yes, a bike that definitely can compete in the weight battle with other very lightweight, but also aerodynamic race bikes. So, is it fast? Yes, of course it is. It's absolutely rapid. Is it faster than the old bike, or a tarmac, or a Madone, or a Super 6 Evo? Well, I can't tell you that today without some comparison testing, so that I have to wait. Is it stiff? Yeah, very stiff. Plenty of stiffness when you're out of the saddle, sprinting up the climbs, through the corners. Is it stiffer than the old bike? Hard to tell without doing back-to-back testing. I would say it feels stiffer than a tarmac. It does feel quite a bit tighter when you're threading through corners and when you're punching up the climbs than a tarmac or a Madone. It definitely feels a bit edgier. Comfort is good for a race bike. I mean, it's not a magic carpet, not as smooth as my C68. And the handling, thanks to the geometry remaining unchanged from the last bike, it's fantastic. I do like Colnago geometry. Just makes it a lovely bike to ride. Very composed, very stable, but very agile as well. It corners like an absolute rocket. Really nice through the corners. Just feels kind of easier and nicer and more enjoyable to bomb down hills on a bike with the Colnago geometry. So, have Colnago done enough to make the V5RS a contender for the best aero lightweight race bike in 2025? Well, there's a lot of choice these days, isn't there? The tarmacs, the Super 6 Evos, the Madones, you name it, there's a lot of choice out there. But if weight was holding you back from buying a V4RS against something like a tarmac, which, let's admit it, a very popular bike due to its impressive combination of low weight and good aero performance, now with the weight savings on the bike, while perhaps not much, actually quite a lot, the same weight and the frame that was already very light and not that heavy is very impressive and can now compete much better with a tarmac or a Madone or a Super 6 Evo. One reservation I do have though is the handlebar. It's the CC 0.01 handlebar, the one-piece setup, but it measures 40 centimeters in the tops, and I'm riding a size 51 frame, so roughly equivalent to a 55, 56, thereabouts. But for me, I think the handlebar is too wide, given the aero focus. It's not about aero, not aero is everything, but aero clearly very important. And I think a narrow handlebar, not crazy narrow, like a 36 or 37, but maybe a 38, just to bring it in a bit and have a bit more flair in the drops, like the ENVE AR handlebar I put on my Colnago C68, which is 38 in the tops, and definitely it feels nice to have that narrow handlebar position on the tops, in the hoods, but some flair in the drops for when you are descending. Yeah, narrow handlebars are more aero, but not everybody wants or needs a narrow handlebar. So tricky to keep everybody happy. But I think a narrow handlebar will be good. That's the main sort of a gripe, I guess, with the bike so far, based on my ride today, around 17-mile drive. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on handlebar width by dropping a comment down below as I ride past yet another amazing house. Look at that. So this might be one of my favorite places to ride in the world. Just amazing to see the Pacific Ocean. Just a lovely way to start the day on the new Colnago V5RS, and looks absolutely amazing, magnificent against that backdrop. But what a view. What a place, California, my goodness me. Love it, love it, love it, love it. The Lone Cypress, an amazing view at the end of this ride on a 17-mile drive. And the Colnago, the V5RS, looking resplendent in front of that view. What a bike. And there's clearly a similarity in how this bike rides compared to the V4RS. Not a massive kind of step forward, but on paper, yes, a big step forward. The weight, the stiffness, the aero, and they are all amazing bikes these days. I mean, all top-end bikes are amazing. Just, we are getting towards peak performance in terms of aero, weight, and stiffness, and comfort. And the V5RS is a nice step forward. It might be easy to judge it as not being a substantial step forward, but it really is. 146 grams is a lot of weight to save from an already light frame. And Colnagos have never been known for being the lightest bikes in the world. That's never been their USP. If you want a super light bike, you buy an Athos or Tarmac or something else. But the weight, it clearly doesn't hold tally back. But this bike is an advantage he clearly doesn't need, but I'm sure he'll revel in the extra performance of the new bike. And I can revel in the performance and the ride quality of the bike, and hopefully get to ride the bike in more familiar surroundings and roads and weather in the next few weeks and months back home in the UK. But a lovely experience. Big thanks to Colnago. This video not sponsored by them, of course. They gave me the opportunity to ride a bike, and I've seized it to share my experience of the bike with you. And hopefully you enjoyed this first ride on the Colnago V5RS. Got any comments, questions, drop them down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel by hitting the button on screen right now. But I'm gonna ride back to my hotel that way for the last day of Sea Otter Classic. And you can see my content from the show, all linked down below. But for now, I'll leave you with a view of the bike and the Lone Cypress tree.